So for at least 2 years now, the only picture profile that people tend to talk about with the A7S III happens to be S-Log3 or S-Cinetone for that matter. But to me, S-Log3 has very specific use cases. When there are a lot of, I don't want to say like a lot, but at least three other picture profiles that you can use that can get you some fast turnaround stuff. That can give you like comparable dynamic range and still make it an easy picture you have to grade. You know, just good straight out of cam footage. Those 3 profiles are going to be standard picture profile off, HLG3, and then Cine 2 with movie profile. Now to me, not every single client that I need, or when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm not always interviewing somebody by a window, like something like that. You feel what I'm saying? Where I need to see the dynamic range. Even so, right now, you can probably see like the highlights are kind of blown out a little bit back here, but if we make an adjustment, and we are currently on Cine 2 movie profile, but let's say we just kind of make an adjustment where we are like just kind of right at the perfect exposure. Now you can see that we actually have some room, and if I wanted to bring this up, if I want to lift my gamma a little bit, still can protect those highlights, I'm good. Now this is with Cine 2 movie profile, you know what I mean? So you still have like a pretty decent amount of dynamic range, very similar to HLG3. Actually, let's switch to HLG3 now. Now here's HLG3. Again, highlights are still protected. We are at F4. Still shooting at 4-bit, you know what I'm saying? 4-bit, 10-bit, 422. But yeah, like as you can see here, like a little bit more. You can kind of see that window behind me on the other side of the building. You can kind of see that like a little bit more. But now let's look at it if we were in standard picture profile off, and I don't know, you might be surprised. Now here's what standard picture profile off. Again, you can kind of make out what that window is doing right now. You can still see behind it. This is, you know, in standard picture profile, supposedly have the worst dynamic range, but if I wanted a Kodak straight out of camera that I know I can deliver, put a light on somebody, I mean, what more could you ask for? Then for good measure, this is S-Log3 we are at 5 right now. As you can see, you can still make out the window detail, but as you can see from between this and HLG3 or a Cine 2 profile, hell, even movie profile, it's not like that much of a serious difference where you notice where, like, when it comes to indoor shooting, this is something like you can use all 3 or all 4 of these picture profiles and still get a great result. Now, before we move on to outside, I actually want to just kind of show you all like the ISO performance, because anytime somebody compare the A7S III with ISO performance, they only use S-Log3, in which like they never talk about how the second dual native ISO on the A7S III, some of these other picture profiles are usually ISO 2000. They always go to ISO 12800. That's the only picture profile the A7S III shoots. So if you're looking for something where you can kind of still get some clean, like standard ISO performance, if you will, and you don't want to use S-Log, we're gonna put a cap on the A7S III and just kind of show you all what that look like. Now we are on S-Log3, right? ISO 640, and then once we start to crank, we start to kind of just see noise start to gradually come in. And it's looking a little wonky, especially in ISO 10,000, and then boom, it cleans up, and then it stays pretty clean at least to like ISO 51,200. A little bit even cleaner, you know what I'm saying? Like now we're at 102, not clean at all. Like you can clearly see that, but for the most part, you know, if you're in a pinch, you got some usable ISOs. I at least have to like 64,000, depending on what you're doing. Now let's look at some of these other ISO performances when you're not in S-Log. Now we are starting at ISO 100 on HLG3, and let's just look and see how clean this is. We're just gradually going up. We're at ISO 1250 right now. Still going. Now we already saw when it clicked over ISO 2000, so you got like a little cleaner, but for the most part, man, look how clean all these other ISOs are compared to S-Log3. Again, depending on what you're doing, you have other picture profiles that you can use. They kind of get you some clean results. And right now we're at ISO 40,000 on HLG3. And from what I can see, like, it's still looking pretty clean. Because, like, maybe it's just a little screen, but we're still looking pretty clean here. Now we're at ISO 80,000. Starting to kind of get like some of that grain in. ISO 102,000. And now we're at ISO 100,000. Now we're at ISO 128,000. So let's switch to other profiles. Okay. Same thing, this is the picture profile off. We're ISO 100. looking clean, but it's gonna gradually keep going up. ISO 2000, as you all can see, still clean. ISO 25600, still a little bit clean. And again, these are all usable to me, depending on what you're doing. We have ISO 64000 right now. So now see, here's where things get a little bit different. Like right now we are ISO 160. Let's just go ahead and bring it down to the lowest ISO we can, which is ISO 100. Now for the most part, you still see me, right? But I am a little bit in the shadow area, and up here, just forget about it. Like there's actually a blue sky there, right? We'll see if we're able to put this down in post. Trying it now. I don't think so, but now we're gonna switch over to Cine 2 movie profile to see what the dynamic range looks like for that profile. I feel like we're kind of going through the same thing here, man. Cine 2 movie profile, you know, just a lot of information going up here in this top area here. Like there's the actual stuff here, but as you can see, it's just essentially all white. Now, if you're cool with that, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Like go with whatever looks work for you. But in certain situations, you know, more dynamic range is better. So now let's take a look at it with HLG3. Now, as you can see, we kind of got some of this information back. Let's see if we can adjust the aperture maybe. For the most part, now if you see if I try to expose for the sky just a little bit more, we are at F5. Now, as you can see, I'm pretty dark. But you can see the sky now. You can see there's an actual building right here now. Now let's take a look and see how it will look if I was using S-Log3 and I'm trying to expose some meat in the sky as well. Now here, I feel like you can see me a little bit more in the shadows, especially if I try to raise them. Same thing I did with HLG3. I still feel like you had, I mean, to me, it's clear to see that you have like a pretty decent amount of dynamic range. My face is in the light here, my face in the shadow here, but I still feel like you're able to make out more detail. Because obviously S-Log has more dynamic range. Dynamic range is the information that you get between the shadows and the highlights. Just for those who don't know that, I mean, if you're watching this, you should know that much. I mean, damn. But yeah, let me know what you all think. And that would do it, y'all. Just let me know kind of what you all thoughts were in regards to my favorite picture profiles. Again, I'm not saying S-Log3 is not the best. What I am saying is that there are other picture profiles that you could use on the Sony cameras other than S-Log3, where if you still need dynamic range, you got HLG3, Cine 2 movie profile. You still can use those two for sure, and you can essentially almost kind of give them to the client, maybe like a little bit of saturation, maybe a little contrast if you want. Those are picture profiles, in my opinion. You can turn over straight to the client, in which you need a little bit of dynamic range and you don't want to do like a lot of post processing and color. Now, if you're just trying to do like a simple interview, I think Sony's color science has come a long way, and at least the standard picture profile off, where you could do an interview, you're not sitting behind any windows, you're lighting everything yourself. Picture profile off, I think I'll be ready to go straight out the box, believe it or not. But let me know what you all think. Like, what's your favorite go-to picture profile? And if S-Tone is your favorite, that's fine. It's just not mine. But I'm really curious to see what other picture profiles you are using or different combinations that you all think I should try. It's your boy Sean B, and I'm out, man. Deuces.